Welcome to Hollywood Impact. My name is Christian McCrite. I am the main host of this show, and Rebel Moon Part 2 just came out, the sequel to Zack Snyder's first Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire, and I gotta say, these movies are not as bad as people say they are. Like, I know that Zack Snyder hasn't had the best of track records with some of his movies. He does have 300, which is a really good movie. He does have Man of Steel, which I think is a really good movie. His version of Zack Snyder's Justice League is really, really good. But he can be kind of hit or miss. But with these movies, I was really excited when they first came out, especially when the trailer released for the first one, because I was like, I heard Zack Snyder was kind of doing a Star Wars-y type movie, and I watched it, and it was not bad. Like, I enjoyed it. It's a solid, 7 out of 10, I would say. So this video, covering this new movie is going to be kind of a two-parter, whereas the first half is kind of going to deal with the review of the movie, and the second half is going to deal with something important that I'd like to say about kind of what's going on with this whole project, and kind of some other things that it might imply or might mean to me. And so going into the review of this, I think that this is a solid movie compared to the first one, where it's a lot of questing, a lot of getting these side characters, which is going to be part of the band of misfit heroes sort of, or redemptive arcs in order to fight the Imperium. Which, by the way, Ed Skrein, I hope I pronounced one of those correctly, as the villain. I love it. I think he's honestly my favorite part of both of these movies. He's such a good, convincing villain. He's in the first Deadpool film and as Ajax, and I really appreciated him in that film. But in these two, he really sells it. I mean, he acts like he is absolutely immersed in this role, and he looks like he's just having fun. And I think he's a really good actor, really underrated actor. So I really appreciated seeing him in a project like this that really kind of lets more of that side of his personality shine, where he can really show the audience what he's capable of. But for this movie, the action is great. Most of this movie is action because the first one was more build-up. There's a solid hour or so of just straight action. The first half of this movie is kind of back and forth. You're kind of getting caught up, but they're also, getting all the villagers ready to prepare for the fight that's coming. Then the fight starts happening halfway in the movie, and you're like, okay, wow, is this going to end really early? No, it goes on for quite a bit, because there's quite a few sequences and character moments that happen right before and in between all these moments. So I really do appreciate the way that both of these movies are directed. Zack Snyder, he's a really cool way of directing movies. I don't always come to his defense with stuff, just like I said earlier, but he makes really cool looking movies, and the visuals in this movie are really good. Top notch, I would say. They're very specific. They're very Zack Snyder-esque. It really lets him lean into his strengths with the slow-mo, with the way that certain, weapons and gadgets are used. I think he's clearly having a good time with all of it, and I like to see that. But from a movie standpoint, of course, I think the plot and the story just kind of falls a little flat. It's pretty by the book. It's pretty by the line. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. There's a group of misfit heroes who band together from all across the places, who have, a common enemy, and they're protecting these little people who can't protect themselves. So they have to kind of train them in order to, fight these really opposing, very, intimidating bad guys from across the way. And, that's been done multiple times over all sorts of different stories. But I think this one is really cool because the characters are very interesting. Are they super deep? No. They try to get deeper into the characters in this second film, which I was debating whether I like this one more or not. And I think I do just a little bit, but probably just mostly because I love action. And so the action in this movie is spectacular. But it does actually take some time to sit these characters down and divulge their backstories and actually tell you what's going on with these people, face up. And I really appreciated that. I really did, because I like those kind of moments in movies like that. For all the things that it does right, which I think is action, a few good character moments. I like the dialogue. The dialogue is, done pretty well. It's not cringy. It's not over the top. The people are immersed in this world, And it really does try to immerse you in this world. There are some moments where music is used in strange places. This is a common complaint I've had with a few things, and I'm probably going to have in the future, but they use like strange vocal music in places maybe a little bit too long. Like I get it for like a few moments, but like over and over, and it's kind of the same song, and then it plays the same song but without the vocals, and I'm not super into that. But, you know, Zack Snyder, he's got to have a lot of dramatic music in some of his films. So, but going on to some of the things that I surely didn't like, besides, you know, besides those music choices, I did not like some of the way that they treated some of the characters. Like after giving them like all kind of like a character moment, they really pushed some of them aside. And I really wish over the course of this movie, I mean, for sure, I think especially last movie, but this movie should have had like more screen time with all of these characters interacting together continuously. But you mostly see them kind of interacting back and forth, and it kind of course it switches back and forth between the good guys and the bad guys, and then it get, you know, talks about all the villagers and kind of what some of the villagers are involved with, what they're thinking. And I just really wish there would have been more cohesiveness with the group that was brought together. The acting is really good. You know, they're all doing, you know, great acting throughout all this, but they don't really mesh together the way I thought they would. Their chemistry isn't quite there. But regardless, I think that this is a solid movie. And for a lot of you, this is going to go under the radar. And for those that, you know, you're excited to see it, you know, it's a solid movie. So just like the first one, actually, I'm going to give this a, well, you know what? I'm going to bump it up. Let's go with 7.5. I'm going with 7.5 out of 10. I think it's slightly better than the first one. I think it's a solid movie. I think people hate on it way too much. I'm a very casual movie lover, so this is kind of up my alley. This is something that where it's like, oh, well, hey, do you want to go to like a friend's house and, you know, watch watch part 1 and part 2 back to back and just chat and play games or whatever in between? I think that'd be a great idea. So that's my whole take on that. Moving on to the second part I wanted to talk about. I think this movie is really important from outside of a, you know, just a watching the movie perspective. This movie represents something really fun that I really appreciated, which is just the ability to go create. Yeah, not everyone has the resources, you know, available, and luckily Zack Snyder does, but he approached, you know, Disney and Lucasfilm and was like, oh, I'd like to do this kind of Star Wars movie. You know, he's always been into Star Wars, and he said, like, I don't want to mess with your main characters. I just want to do this side thing, and I want to make it rated R. I want it to be like mature, which the Star Wars universe, you know, in the comics and the books totally is capable of having those darker moments. And they, you know, they went in a different direction, which is, you know, totally their choice. But I think it's good that he just turned around and was like, you know what? I'm going to make this movie anyways. And so now he didn't have to tiptoe around the stories or the characters. He can kind of just do what he wants. He can freelance. And I think that that's such a good thing for this movie. And I think it's a good thing for directors going forward. Kind of like how so many people had this like surgence over Zack Snyder's Justice League. I think that this plays into like that sort of realm where it's like, you know what? Go make something. You know, that's part of why I'm doing this. I never thought, you know, I really could be like a YouTuber of sorts, and but you know, we're just doing new things, you know, day by day, week by week, trying to make ourselves better, and I think that's kind of inspiring, where someone was like, you know what, I don't think we want to do this, and he's like, I'm going to do it anyways because I love this and I love what I can do with this, and he uses the inspiration from the very things that told him no, and he's like, I'm going to make my own version and it's going to have all these cool things. And honestly, this would make a great TV series, like with the visuals and the actors. I mean, of course, they probably wouldn't have the budget for all these actors and actresses they have in this movie, but the whole setting, like he could really make this a TV series if he wanted to. Or, you know, just my opinion, he could do something like Warhammer, something like that. But regardless, I think that that's super important because I just love watching people create what they want to create and to love their creation so much. But anyways, I just wanted to say that it's very short thought for me. But I hope you all enjoyed. If you liked this video, please sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to keep up with our content. And be sure to check out our other videos and other shows here on EFN. Thank you so much and have a good one.